In this video, we're going to learn about linear functions. A lot of what you're going to see in this video, you've seen before. We're just putting it all together. So the definition of a linear function is a function whose graph is a non-vertical line. It's a non-vertical line. And it can be written in the form of y equal mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So it can be written in the form of y equal mx plus b, m is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. So we are going to write a linear function using a graph. And I have a graph here, and I have 4 points that are plotted on the graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is find slope. Now I can find slope either by doing the rise, counting the rise over the run directly from the graph, or using 2 points that are on that line that we're trying to write the function for. So I'm actually going to do it by finding the slope using 2 points. And I'm going to pick this point, and I'm going to pick this point. And remember, my equation for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to rewrite the points here for 3 and 2, 0. And then I'm going to go and label them x1, y1, x2, y2. So now I can plug them into my equation to calculate my slope. So y2 is 0 minus y1 is 3. So I've got 0 minus 3 in the numerator. And in the denominator, my x2 is 2 and my x1 is 4. So I'm going to write 2 minus 4 in my denominator. And now I'm going to do the math in the numerator. And 0 minus 3 is negative 3. And in the denominator, 2 minus 4 is negative 2. And a negative divided by a negative will be a positive, so my slope is 3 over 2. Now, the next part is to find the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is the point where your line crosses over the y-axis. And that's right here at the point 0, negative 3. So my y-intercept is at negative 3. So at the point 0, negative 3, my y-intercept is negative 3. It's the y value in that ordered pair. So then my linear function is, again, we need to create a line in the form of y equal mx plus b. I have my slope is 3/2, and I have my y-intercept is negative 3. So my equation is y is equal to my slope, 3/2, times x, and it's going to be minus 3 or plus a negative 3 for my y-intercept. All right, let's look at another example of writing a linear function from a graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my slope. And I've already picked out 2 points from my graph, negative 4, 1 and negative 2, 0, from which I'm going to find my slope. And I'm going to use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the first thing I'm going to do is label my points x1, y1, x2, y2, and then I'm going to substitute in the values that I need for my y's and my x's. So my y2 is 0 and my y1 is 1. So I'm going to have in my numerator 0 minus 1. And in my denominator, my x2 is negative 2 and my x1 is negative 4. So I'm going to write in my denominator negative 2 minus a negative 4. And now I'll do my math. In the numerator, I have 0 minus 1, which is a negative 1. And in the denominator, I'm going to do some change. So I have negative 2 plus 4 would be a positive 2. So my slope is actually negative 1/2. Now for the y-intercept, I'm looking for the point where my line is going to cross over my y-axis, which is right here at the point 0, -1. So my y-intercept is at -1. Now I have the two things I need to write my linear function. I have my slope, which is m, and I have my y-intercept, which is b. So my equation is going to be y is equal to -1/2 x minus 1. Okay, now we can write a linear function using a table as well. So I have a table, and the first thing we can do when we have a table is go and graph the function. So that's already been done for us. We already graphed the function. And then the next thing would be to find the slope. And we are going to use the formula for slope again, which is m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to pick the points -3, 9 and -2, 7. So -3, 9 and -2, 7. And I'm going to label them x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to go plug in my y's and x's into my equation so I can calculate slope. So y2 is 7 and y1 is 9. So I'm going to have 7 minus 9 in my numerator. And in my denominator, my x2 is -2 and my x1 is -3. So I'm going to have -2 minus a -3. And now when I do the calculation in my numerator, I have 7 minus 9 is -2. And in my denominator, let me do some change. I have -2 plus 3 is a 1. So my slope ends up being -2. Now, my y-intercept, where my line is going to cross the y-axis, is at this point 0, 3. And I can actually see that point here in the table where we have x values. When my x value is 0, I know that this is going to graph on the y-axis. So my y-intercept is right there. It's at 3. So my y-intercept is 3. Now I can put it all together to get the linear function, y equal mx plus b, and my slope is -2, so -2x plus 3. So my function for this line is y is equal to -2x plus 3. All right, in this example, I'm going to write my linear function directly from my table. So I've already chosen 2 points to calculate my slope, -2, 2 and -1, 2. And I've already labeled them as x1, y1 and x2, y2. And I've already plugged them into my equation for slope. My y2 minus y1 is 2 minus 2. And my x2 minus x1 is -1 minus a -2. So when I do the math out, I'm going to get 2 minus 2 is 0. And let me do some change in the denominator. I have -1 plus 2, which would be 1. Now 0 divided by 1 would give me a 0 slope. I'm not going to say anything about that right now. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now my y-intercept is going to occur at the point where x is 0, and that means that my line is going to cross at the y value. So my y-intercept for this line is going to be at 2. So now I have my y-intercept and I have my slope. I can write my linear function. So y is going to equal m, my slope is 0, x, plus my y-intercept is 2. Now this 0x, I can't, or I don't need to keep that. So I'm going to delete that. So I'm left with just y is equal to 2. Well, when y is equal to 2, this tells me that this is going to be a horizontal line. And the slope of 0 also tells me it's going to be a horizontal line. And if I go graph it, it ends up being a horizontal line.